an executive session just now, so our meeting's already been opened. The first item on the public agenda is the special public hearing on the district report for violence, vandalism, and harassment, intimidation, and bullying. I believe Mr. Earl is going to give the presentation tonight.
Yeah. Mr. President, while we're waiting for just Mr. Earl to just set up, just one other item to note, pardon me. In addition to the items listed on the agenda for closed session, the board also did discuss in matter number 7, docket number A-0962-17 T3, and the board also discussed a matter involving potential litigation over board policy 2551. So in addition to the items already noted, those were the 2 items that were also discussed.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight I would like to share with you the 2017-2018 Violence and Vandalism Report. All public school districts are required to hold 2 public hearings each year to provide a repost to the Board of Education on all acts of violence and vandalism which occurred in the school district during the previous year. This hearing must be kept on file by the District Board of Education. In addition, school districts in New Jersey are required to designate the first week of October as the week of respect and the 3rd week of October as School Violence and School Violence Awareness Week. During this week, schools must provide an opportunity for students and staff and parents and law enforcement and personnel to discuss methods for keeping the schools safe and the safety plans, and to recognize students in need of help. Please let me begin by presenting the 2017-2018 Violence and Vandalism Report for West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District. I have included the incidents from 17-18 school year for your reference. Let me preface the report with a brief explanation regarding how the information is gathered. For every incident of violence and or vandalism, substance abuse, weapons that take place in our schools, we must report the incidents to the state using the Electronic Violence and Vandalism Reporting System, or EVVRS for short. First, I'd like to start with our district mission statement. Just as a point of reference, I think it's important as we build toward our mission, and in particular, building upon a tradition of excellence, the mission of West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District is to empower all learners to thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world with confidence, strength and character, and a love for learning. Empowering young people to report and have discussions about bullying, violence is a big part of our mission. So hopefully as we see and review this data today and we continue on our mission, we will see these incidences, these opportunities for people to engage in these acts decrease. That's kind of the goal through this process. So Week of Respect, designated as October 1st through the 5th. In accordance with the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, school districts throughout the state are required to observe the week, providing an age-appropriate instruction focusing on preventing harassment, intimidation, and bullying. At this time, I would like to present some of the activities, or highlight activities, a few of those that have taken place in our schools. Dutch Neck, morning announcements. The theme of respect will be highlighted each morning in their announcements during that week, or they were highlighted. Wear blue today. I thought that was very interesting. We'll be joining students across the nation as we will try to put a stop to bullying. You can see on Wednesday, Sock It to Bullying, where they wore crazy socks. Some of you probably could have participated in Crazy Sock Day if you are into crazy socks. Maurice Hawk, Wear Orange Day. You're glad we're a bully-free school. On Tuesday, they wore team jerseys. It was Team Up Against Bullying Day. And then they also had a sock it to bullying, hats off to being respectful, and a hats off day where they wore hats. So at a time where we remove our hats entering buildings, that was a great opportunity to build support around HIV and awareness. Town Center, if I can see it, yes I can. Town Center superhero training program. And as you can see, they also, and many of the schools did have guidance counselors go into the building to support students. So they had guidance counselor to go in during the month of October, and you can see some of the activities that they were engaged in. On Friday, Respect in the School, were the colors of the Gator gear. They're the Gators in the school, green and gold, I think. So there was probably a good bit of green and gold on that day. Wyckoff, Wake Up Wyckoff, announcements and quotes about respect. They also had a Bus Buddies program, and the principal, as you can see at the bottom, the principal and the counselor met with PTA, so engaging parents in this process was a big part of the programming for elementary, middle, and high schools. Millstone River, counselors visited classrooms with lessons focused on respect. They had respect quotes. The principal and assistant principals and other administrators were engaged, other staff members. And then they had the question of the week. That was Village, had the question of the week that will target responsible behaviors. Think about what you could do today to feel responsible. So they had questions throughout the week that were powerful for students. Community middle school, some of the same types of activities. As you can see, they had on Wednesday, I thought was neat, Kindness Sticks, the Kindness Sticks Challenge, where students were encouraged to write and pass along a kindness stick to other students. I won't read the whole description, but it gives you an idea of what they were doing. And then they also on Friday engaged in an anti-bullying pledge. At the high schools, at Grover Middle School, Grover Middle School, Week of Respect, announcements. They wore red, white. On Tuesday was red, white, and blue day. Grover stands united to show respect we have for our country, where we are free to express ourselves. And you can go on and read forward from there. They also on Wednesday participated in Today is Wellness Wednesday. So an exciting time for Grover in this process during that week. High School North, announcements, mostly announcements, but I was encouraged that peer group discussions were taking place on how to recognize someone being mistreated, when to get involved, which I believe is really important as we do this work, and when to reach out for help. High School South also engaged in announcements throughout the week, showing respect, respecting others, and had quotes from some, Jackie Robinson, Maya Angelou, and different people that were important to the students at South High School. Three hands. So the definition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying is any gesture, any written, physical, verbal, or physical act, any electronic communication, whether it be a single incident or a series of incidents, that is reasonably perceived as being motivated by either any actual or perceived characteristics such as race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, or a mental, physical, or sensory disability, or by any other distinguishing characteristic that takes place on school property, at a school-sponsored function, or on school bus or off school grounds, as provided in this section, that substantially disrupts or interferes with the orderly operation of the school or the rights of other students. That definition is broad on purpose. It encompasses so many opportunities for students to report acts of HIB, and the school will get engaged, has a responsibility to get engaged in the investigation process. So evidence of HIB. This is what you see as board members when you have confirmations. When they're substantiated and or not. So evidence of HIB, and a couple of examples: the student knowingly engaged in racist, homophobic, or other stereotyping behavior with the specific objective of hurting, intimidating, or harassing another student. So what are the factual findings behind that? Intentional, with hate speech, and designated to harass, intimidate, or bully. And you can see the range of evidence opportunities here that goes all the way down to the student was a victim of an HIB incident, or the student was a victim of an HIB incident. And the factual finding is HIB victim. But if you look in the middle, there are opportunities where a student may have participated in an HIB incident and it wasn't intentional. And you can see the third, fourth statement: the student unknowingly engaged in harassing behavior, intimidating or bullying behavior, and had no awareness. Sometimes a student may say hurtful things, have no idea that it was intended to hurt anyone, and so as the investigation completes, you can see that it might be unintentional, or the one above it, the student knowingly engaged, but didn't intend to hurt. So there's a range when we're dealing with HIB cases for students to be engaged and or to be substantiated or not. So West Windsor-Plainsboro investigations confirmed and confirmed HIB. We look at the 2016-17 year versus the 2017-18 year. And you'll see, if you look at the first two columns, that represents 2016-17. The second two bar graphs, they represent the 17-18 year. You see September to December, January to June. What do you notice about the data? The fall, or the January to the September to December time, similar in the number of investigation. The spring is always higher. We were talking about why is that the case? Well, there are more months. If you look at the range of months, that's January to June, but also the spring brings a different time of year. People have changed, so you'll likely see more in a school. And as principal for many years, the spring was always challenging with many things in a school. So you likely see more investigations, even confirmed HIB, as you might see here. What you also notice is the September to December range in both years are consistent in 2016 and 2017. The investigations are about the same, and the confirmed HIB is about the same. What's noticeably different is January to June of 2018. You have more investigations and more confirmed HIB. So what does that mean? We will be investigating. We have some information that tells us where these things are happening, but our culture, we're building stronger students. We hope that this is a result of us empowering young people to come forward and share information where we can help eliminate harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So you might see a spike here, but we hope that's not good. We feel strongly that that's a big part of it, but also that things are taking place in our schools that we certainly want to address. So some of the patterns and the trends, we're seeing more HIV and unstructured activities. That's likely off-school grounds, can certainly be at activities away from school, bus incidents, minimally supervised settings, common distinct, we see characteristics that are more common. We see our HIV addressing disabilities, physical appearance, race, religion, sexual orientation. As I said, we have a spike in investigations. Incidents seem to peak in middle school. Incidents increase in parent reporting. As I talked about, as we empower students, we hope we're empowering parents to share these incidents with us or information that lead us to a path of resolution in many of these incidents. And a decrease in social media incidents. That might be because most of those things we can read and see, and young people are finding other ways. We hope that it's a decrease because they understand it's just inappropriate. So the count of incidents by reporting category. HIV, you can see in 16, 17, 51, and there's the spike. We had 20 more incidents last year in 17, 18. We had a few more violence incidents in 17, 18 than we did the previous years. Let me just back up to say, so violence is, you can see the legend at the bottom, is any act. It can be a pushing act. We must report that. So when you see violence, it's not always a fight that took place where someone was injured. It could be a fight. As you can see, it's assault, fight, kidnapping, robbery, and many other things that go under in that category. Vandalism, the same thing. We had a decrease there, 2 less incidents. Weapons, we had 1 this year as opposed to 0 last year. Substance abuse went up. We believe that's a result, too, of vaping, which is in our schools, and potentially students are finding a way around some of the other ways of substance abuse, and we want to be well aware of that and doing our work to address those issues as we stand here today. Incident by category totals, middle schools, violence 12, high school 7. You can see for a total of 19, vandalism 2 all year, weapons 1, the one incident I referenced in the previous slide, substance abuse 18, and that's where we see more, see the numbers have gone up in substance abuse over the last year. So what are we doing? Some of the activities we were engaged in around violence and vandalism, the week of recognized violence awareness. You can see Wyckoff, we're engaged in several activities. The guidance department engaged again. Town center, some of the similar themes you'll see where they were engaged in daily announcements. PTAs involved. Maurice Hawk had a few activities that might be different. Dutch Neck, they continue to do announcements. Classroom teachers are heavily engaged during this week talking about violence, what it means not to be violent, what it means to report. Village and Millstone River, the same. Community Middle and Grover. You can see the GSA bystander cast will facilitate activities during class, or did facilitate those activities during recess, focus on kindness and acceptance. So you can see some really neat things happening, and as we make our students aware, we are hopeful that we don't see numbers rise over time, we see numbers fall, and we continue to figure out how to remove HIB and violence and vandalism in our schools. So proactive programs for student development, school counselors and the anti-bullying specialists in our schools, our counseling curriculum, where counselors, as you've seen in some of the presentations from the schools, counselors are in classrooms, in student spaces, talking about these things. Our student assistance counselors are doing the same. Assembly programs, our peer leaders are engaged in creating platforms for students to have discussions, honest discussions, and ways to resolve some of the issues. Character education programs, the Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care Specialist or Clinician. We have added one and we'll be adding two as a way to address interventions as we see these things, someone who can really dig deep with us, work with the team of counselors and students assistance counselors to determine how do we assist our students during these difficult times and difficult conversations. Many clubs and organizations will be promoting programs about aspects of students' social and emotional development. And current administrative focus, we want to review and revise the Student Code of Conduct annually. I arrived early in August and I saw some revisions, so I know that the schools are working to revise those each year to be more inclusive, to start to understand behaviors year by year. Students change, they don't stay the same. And the culture changes and it shifts. Implementation of state-mandated harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. As I mentioned earlier, we are mandated and required to investigate HIB allegations or perceived allegations. Review of the district crisis plan and focus on the strategic goals, particularly goal 2 and 3, global competence. We believe that students who are understanding points of views from other people, other ethnic backgrounds, and focused on social and emotional learning, being respectful to other people. That's how you do this in a sustained way. As we do instructional rounds, we're looking for that type of work in our classrooms, and we think that's going to be important instead of a one-shot deal or a week of respect or a week of violence awareness, a sustained approach daily through the strategic goals of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? All right. Carol, pull the microphone down.
Could you please explain what responsive classroom techniques are?
Responsive classroom text?
Yes, this is under Maurice Hawk School. In an ongoing effort to create a conflict-free environment, the staff uses responsive classroom techniques and reinforces peacemaking techniques with our students.
Yeah, I think they will provide, and I will ask for clarification, but I would imagine that that's an opportunity for students to hear examples of a conflict and practice how to respond appropriately, to listen and then to respond, and do it in a safe space, because quite often from, K to 12, students having a safe space to respond. So practicing responsive techniques is about saying, hey, can I sit down with James and have a conversation about what took place? Or if you're younger kids, hey, you two guys come in and sit down, you two ladies come in and sit down. Let's talk about what happened. You tell me your side, you listen, respond, and so I think that's the practice they're engaging in at Maurice Hawk and other schools.
And Mr. Earl, if we could...
I'll just follow up on that a little bit. So what Mr. Earl had said was absolutely correct. But Responsive Classroom is a nationally recognized program which trains teachers of how to develop structures within the classroom in order for students to be able to respond appropriately to each other. And we have had several teachers who have been trained in Responsive Classroom, and just last year the board approved one of our teachers going for the highest level of certification so that she can continue to then turnkey that that in district, and we don't always have to send teachers out to that training. And so at the K-5 level, most of our teachers have been trained in responsive classroom, and they incorporate those strategies and techniques as part of the morning meeting time. So when they're talking about establishing cultures and relationships within the classroom, but then it also is something that happens throughout the day. So when those teachable moments come, when students are interacting with each other, it's ways to be able to respond in an appropriate manner.
Anyone else? Yeah, Rachel.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Earl. See, just a question regarding the numbers, some of the numbers that had gone up. And you'd mentioned that, that at least the hope is that this is a result of students feeling more empowered, but that you were going to also try to sort of further investigate that. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what are some of the things the guidance department or the administration is going to do to take a closer look at that? Is there some process that you're going to look for, some type of investigation that the guidance department is going to use to try to look at that?
I think if Lee was here, he could probably be more explicit, but I know that we're already engaged in reviewing things such as our gaggle alerts that we get, why are students writing the things they're writing, and using that data to determine how do we proceed in supporting them. So first it's about getting the information, determining what's the crisis, what's the concern, and then determining from there how do we use many of the structures that we have in place to support them. So guidance counselors, we're communicating regularly. Why did this happen? The why is important. Someone writes something, it appears, oh my gosh, they wrote that, and then you find out there might be a concern that we need to address. So we dig deeper. So it really is a strategy in digging deeper. It won't be one size fits all type model. It will be student specific, and as we get more data, so as we showed you trends, we talked about the trends in the data. As we see those trends, we'll address those trends individually or as a group going into this year and going into next year as we build this support moving forward. So, and this is the first of two presentations. I hope as we come back, we'll be talking about here's what we identified, here's the approach we're taking. Every year, throughout the year, daily, counselors are engaged at this level, SACs are engaged at this level, administrators, and even district level personnel.
Tony?
Another question? Yeah.
So in the increase in HIB incidents, there was no particular trend in the increase, or there was? They were concentrated on any one type of incident or not?
I think that if you looked at 2016 and 2017, it's just more of the same types of incidents. And if you looked at trends, it's the same types of incidents. We just had more of them in 2017-18. And you can look at that, as a good thing. We believe students are empowered. We believe that we've created a culture of students sharing and trusting us to go and resolve or to help them resolve those incidents. So hopefully at some point we see that number decrease, but that takes time training students. Dr. Idaho.
And just to add to that, one of the renewed efforts last year, we had the board attorney come in and retrain all of our HIB specialists and all of our district administration, and that happened in the fall, and then that was rolled back out to staff. So I'm not surprised to see an increase in the second half of the year as staff then had incidents come in front of them that they may or not have classified as HIB prior. They went forward with full investigations due to the retraining. So that was something we had recognized in the year before, and then went through that retraining process in the fall of last year. And I think that does account for some of the increase in the second half of the year.
Any other, Karen?
I'm very interested that there's been a decrease in social media incidents. And do you have any thoughts about how that came about?
No, I don't at this time. I saw that and thought, wow, because students haven't stopped using social media. I think a lot has to do with the fact that they're connecting the dots, that parents, administrators, and teachers are also connected to social media. So while we have seen maybe the decrease of using social media, remember, we saw a number of HIB incidents go up, so we're maybe seeing them in other places. Because if it's written, particularly at school, we see it. And we see it right away, and we may get an alert through our system, monitoring system, right away, and we address it right away. And so whatever the reason, we hope that students are responsible using social media, and we're hopeful that our numbers decrease for all the right reasons.
So on the incidents by reporting category, hate violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse, how does that compare to like other districts that maybe are similar to us? Like, how do our overall numbers compare?
Well, I haven't done a comparison. Dr. Adderhold and I talked earlier, and what I can tell you is that years of being an administrator in New Jersey, these numbers are lower, if I can say that. In other places, numbers that I've been and worked through in schools that I've connected with as we try to eliminate HIB, violence, and vandalism, the numbers are typically higher. But I think it all has to do with the culture, so I certainly don't want to make assumptions about other districts. I think what we have here in front of us is a great opportunity to continue to learn and grow. But I know I don't know, Dr. Adderhold, you may be able to add more to that.
It's been a couple of years since I've looked at trend data, but historically, as Mr. Earl has said, our numbers have been on the lower side of the HIB. Yeah, I would just caution that, while it's nice to see lower numbers, it doesn't mean that everything's being reported. And one of my largest concerns with the HIB policy is not what's brought forward, but what's not reported and what goes uninvestigated. Because there is something within student culture that the kids know, especially at the middle school and high school level, what the process is. So oftentimes, there's concern that oftentimes incidents go unreported. So while I think we should, be pleased with some of the trends historically over time, I think we should really pause and caution that it tells us a full picture of what's going on out there.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have okay. We have an opportunity for public comment on the violence, vandalism, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. These are going to be comments just on that report. There'll be another opportunity for public comment on general topics after this. So there are 3 minutes per speaker for a maximum of 10 minutes will be provided for public comments on the items under violence, vandalism, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. If anyone would like to make a statement, please give your name and address too.
Good evening. I'm Fiza Friedman at 4 Woodland Court in West Windsor. It was great to see this presentation tonight. I've sat on HIB stakeholder teams since my kids were in elementary school, since this came into law, and I'm always impressed with the way the district handles this. Also impressed with, well, I don't want to see any HIB incidents, how few there are considering, in our district, considering the number of people that it affects, although of course we would love to see that number being 0. I'm concerned about the substance abuse scenario, which is prevalent in every school, everywhere these days it seems. But I'm not sure exactly what my comment is, except that I wonder how we are making sure that our kids are available to, or able to report or comment upon the substance abuse that's happening, particularly in the high schools. I hear it all the time, the chatter all the time, that there's an awful lot going on, that way more than what we're seeing up here. So I guess I just would love to see more discussion at some point, and I'm sure you guys talk about it all the time, but what's happening that we can get more information into the kids' hands about how awful this is and what we can do to try to get around that problem in the schools.
Yeah, thank you.
Veronica Mina, 41 Galston Drive. I have actually two questions. One, in one of the slides, it said weapons had increased from 0 to 1. Weapons is a very broad term, so I would like to understand a little bit more exactly what type of weapon. It is said, according to the slide, in middle school. And the second part is substance abuse also went from 10 to 18. So what happened and why it did increase like that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Arun Rao from 2 Shadow Drive. Quick question. We often bully what we don't understand or what makes us comfortable or something that's different. And what I was wondering is what programs are in existence in the schools, especially in the middle schools where the incidence is highest, for kids to have opportunities to kind of reach across the aisle and either buddy or partner with kids who might be different from them, so that they kind of become friends. You're not going to bully a friend or somebody that you know pretty well. You're going to bully somebody who you do not know and who you do not understand, and who's different than you. And you know, peer pressure and being different and assimilation are huge issues in the middle school arena especially. And what kind of efforts are done, whether within the classroom or extracurricularly, to foster things like this? I was told once that in middle school there is a bench for kids who feel that they're being left out that they can sit. What middle schooler, having all of us been through middle school, is going to put themselves on a bench that says that nobody's playing with me, can you guys come talk to me? I don't think that's effective. I think that you need to figure out what's going on in the school system or within the district that you can have these kids partner with each other and buddy up so that they learn about each other and that they're less prone to probably bullying something that they know.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the board has to take a vote on approving the report. Can I have a motion on item 1, Taylor and Martin? Any questions or comments on the board? Or from the board? Okay.
We'll start with Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Ms. Hertz.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Jean.
Yes.
Ms. Case.
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty.
Yes. All right, that adjourns the special public hearing. And now we're going to have Dr. Idaho give us a presentation on the referendum.
Good evening to members of the public. Before I go into this, I'd just like to take a moment, if I could, just to address the 2 or 3 of the comments that were made before. With respect to concerns with substance abuse in the high schools, in particular, middle school and high school, but in particular the high schools, parents are right to have a concern. Vaping is of an epidemic proportion with teenagers and with 20-somethings in our nation. If you're not familiar with vaping or Juuls, they look differently, but they look like a thumb drive per se, and it's a way to take a synthetic hit of nicotine. The difficulty, in addition, is there's also now synthetic marijuanas that beat drug testing. So there are now synthetic marijuana products that are being blended with vaping or vape juice, and they have a tremendous amount of different names, and you'll see vape shops popping up all over central Jersey and all over the nation. So the difficulty is that it's odorless in the sense that it doesn't smell like tobacco. It smells often as of berries or of vanilla or raspberry or strawberry, so you wouldn't know as a parent that your child was vaping. You wouldn't know as a teacher. It looks like a thumb drive. You could literally have it in your hand, take a hit, in class, bending down to get your books, and no teacher would possibly know. There's actually now sweatshirts and materials being sold where the actual drawstring of the sweatshirt actually has a vape product in it that you can inhale right through that, and the product is inside the sweatshirt, and then you can then inhale into your sleeve. So there are products out there, and there are a whole cottage industry out there about getting your kids high, whether by nicotine or by synthetic marijuana products. We have recently intercepted, because the student purchased it through an Amazon card delivered through their district email account, and we knew that the package was being delivered. It came as a gaggle alert because it was the word naked. It was naked juice, which is a product of Juul liquid for vaping. And so the student had the invoice sent to their district email to beat their parents' account. So it went around them, but we got it, called the parents, and let them know the delivery was coming at a time when the parent wasn't going to be home. So students are purchasing products that are also coming from states with legalized marijuana. So we did have a student selling vaping materials from California with THC, the chemical compound for marijuana, in that. So we should be concerned. We've done multiple presentations on this to parents as well as staff as well as students. Our SAC counselors are out there, students assistance counselors are out there having these conversations. Our administration, we've been working in partnership with the police. West Windsor Township currently is bringing forward an ordinance on vaping because the school district approached the township and asked if they would please consider writing a vaping ordinance to help patrol some of these challenges that we're having. But I would anticipate that number will rise in future years because we're also working with the hospitals right now to change the way we drug test to include testing for synthetic marijuanas. Now, that test is only as good as the compounds known at the time of the test. And so what's happening is the synthetic formulas are being changed at such a rate that the kids in the product are ahead of the test. Right? So it is a tremendous challenge for all of us. And this is not a WWP concern. This is a district and national area concern. And if you have a child that's vaping and they've told you that it's cleaner and healthier than nicotine, please know the chemical amounts of nicotine in vaping is of an astronomical quantity compared to, is misled on most of the labeling. Most of the labeling comes from overseas. It's misrepresented. It's also cut off, oftentimes with products like formaldehyde and whatnot. So not only are they ingesting synthetics, but they're ingesting chemicals of a dangerous level. And we have had situations where you can go into nicotine shock, right? So we did have one student last year transported because of nicotine illness due to vaping. So, you know, we're not hiding from this. We're saying this is a problem. We know it. We're working we're looking at a presentation in November, late November, early December on this. We're working on that right now, trying to line the speakers up. But yeah, we all should be concerned. With respect to the weapons concern at middle school, that was at community middle school, I want to say last February. It was discussed with the community families that a student brought a look-alike weapon into school. Look-alike weapons are weapons by category. Under Criminal Code 2C, a look-alike weapon is a criminal weapon brought into a school zone. And we moved forward with the Board of Education. Family chose to leave the district. So we are not able to really comment much beyond that. But I will say that that was followed to the full extent of the rules. Challenges in that case, student had access to something purchased by a family member, and they decided that they'd bring it in on a school bus to show it to people and brandished it. So we have had that incident last year in our schools. Again, that was communicated with the community middle school families. And with respect to like the buddy bench that was indicated, there are so many more programs at our middle schools that I would not do justice to it right now. But that is often, that was a strategy used at one point in time, often purchased by PTAs and PTSAs as one strategy to help out and provide assistance for students looking for finding another classmate to participate with. They're often used at the upper elementary and elementary schools. But we do see many strategies about how to get to know each other, many programs and guest speakers, team-based events, SAC counselor events, guidance counselors event, working events with the principals as well as with the team teachers to get to know one another. One of the beauties of the middle school schedule is the team-based approach in which 4 teachers work with clusters of approximately 100 students, and they do have shared planning time and flex time with the students, so they get to know, and they do team-based activities monthly or quarterly. So there's an array of things that happen. That doesn't mean we can't consistently improve. So I do appreciate the gentleman's question. For the purpose of this evening, I'm going to speak to the referendum presentation. Now, this is presentation 11 or 12 at this point. There's one more on Thursday night. I will do the full scope, hour-and-a-half presentation on Thursday. I did that again this morning at Villages PTA. For this evening, I'm going to go through big picture highlights. I'm going to show where information is on the website as well, so members of the community know where they can go for additional information. I'll make sure I talk about the financing and the public questions this evening. We'll show you also where things are on the website. In fact, let me do that now so that I don't forget to do that at the end. All right, so just a couple things to note with respect to the website. If you're going on the district website under About Us, and this is the screen in front of me, is not the screen, right? So we're here under About Us. The first slide is Referendum 2018, and there are 2 pages, right? 2 pages of information for you to find. So I pulled a couple of them up so we can just flip quickly to them. The first tab is I created a sending paths chart by elementary school, so starting with going back to the pre-K 2, K3 sending path, Hawk Village, Hawk, Dutch Neck, Town Center, and Wyckoff. If your child's at Grover, just go back to the original elementary sending path, and you can see sort of the through line of what the programs are going to be created, or the additions in the referendums will be on that sending path. We sent out an FAQ, a frequently asked questions, to the community, to the parents last week. It's up on the district website. It's 5 or 6 pages, so it's there under the same area. We created a series of referendum videos. You can watch the entire 55-minute version, or you can break it up by school and by introduction, and you can watch it in 5 to 7-minute clips. I encourage you to watch it. It's very informative, and it breaks down every school, and if you're not able to come back on Thursday, by all means, you can see it right there. This is the document that I put out on Thursday based on residential growth that's been approved in both West Windsor and Plainsboro. These are the numbers I'll speak to in a few minutes, but this is here, so you can see that as well. Then I created a chart based on, this is based on both West Windsor primarily, then on Plainsboro. What this chart represents is all the approved affordable housing growth in West Windsor. The first 4 pages, I believe, are West Windsor alone. This comes directly from the Township Council's, the information comes directly from the Township Council's website for the Fair Share Housing Settlement. With respect to Exhibit C of the approved document, I then have been using a chart similar to this over time. I modified this chart with the information from Exhibit C from the Township's website, and have produced the ratios and yields of what we can expect for school-age children. And the last one is a 1-page overview of the referendum projects, because there are some that said that they want to see it all in one place. I should also point out that the presentation updated as of 10/25, everything that I've been speaking about at the other meetings is on the website. So if you are looking for the presentation and you don't want to take screenshots or notes, there should be one that says, excuse me, I hit the button accidentally. It should say updated referendum 1025, and the full presentation is there as of the same one I did this morning. I just have been altering the order based on the school I'm in to make sure that I'm leading with the sending pass for the families for the school-age children. So this is all up there. It's been up there. We've been adding as we go. Again, I encourage you to please check out resources there. We've worked very hard to make sure that families and community members are as informed as possible about the vote that we're being asked of them next Tuesday. All right, so Mr. Earl already spoke to the mission statement. But what I know about this community in the 10 years that I've had the great pleasure of serving as assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, and superintendent for the past 6, is that this district values the educational experience that are provided to all the children. It's a cornerstone of what makes West Windsor and Plainsboro great. We have an amazing community that want their children to be empowered. They want their children to have a rich experience, to be learners that thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world with confidence, strength of character, and love of learning. There is tremendous pride in our community in ensuring that these traditions continue and that excellence is maintained and quite frankly, surpassed. If we slip in ratings from a 3 to a 4 or 4 to a 5, there's questions about what must have changed and how the district must be failing. So I know that the community upholds the educational experience and expects and demands excellence from us. What I'm going to tell you is when you bring the number of students into this district that are slated, that will be coming from approved projects, if we don't do something with our facilities, maintaining excellence is going to become harder and harder to do. And it is critical that this community consider a referendum in order to ensure that the facility space that is necessary to maintain such excellence is provided. Enrollment growth is undeniable. Right? Over 4,100 residential units between West Windsor and Plainsboro have been approved by both Township Council and Committee. We're projecting 1,784 students over the next 3 to 10 years, and that's a pretty wide gap, but I mean, there's a lot of kids coming. And at the time in which the Fair Share Housing Settlement was brought forward, there was 868 additional units that were not planned for at the time that this referendum was put together. So in other words, there's plus 868 units that were not accounted for in this plan. 8 of our 10 schools are over capacity today. We already have programmatic impacted primarily in areas of technology, robotics, and science at High School South more than High School North. So what that means right now is students are in non-science classrooms at High School South. What it means for the future is limitations in your science offerings. So that's what it means by future course restrictions are evident. Class sizes are rising. If you're a parent at Village right now, you have class size average in 4th grade at 26. If you're a parent at Grover, your 6th grade math classes are sitting in 30 to 32. If you're a parent at 8th grade at Grover, you're seeing class sizes between 28 and 32 across the board. Those are kids that exist today before the growth. HVAC systems are challenging today primarily at North, Millstone River, and Wyckoff. Those systems are in dire need of updates, overhauls of systems. Growth classrooms are necessary. You can't increase 1,784 kids and not increase classrooms without having a detrimental impact on the opportunities for students. And let me remind that house values are tied often to the education of the system. So if someone's saying, you know what, not my kids, they're not going to be impacted, 3 to 5 years to build all this and I'm out. But those that are moving in are going to be moving into your home and having an expectation of excellence into a school system. So growth classrooms are definitely needed. This referendum brings forward the opportunity to serve and maintain excellence that's expected in our community. Let me go further to say, like, again, there's the WWP News did a nice job of capturing the 1,500 in the last edition. But what they didn't capture was the total number of growth units associated with the affordable housing numbers. All they listed was the affordable housing by unit, not the total number of growth units. Please check that chart out that I just put up, the yellow 5-page chart that shows the total growth units. It's 3,678 growth residential units in West Windsor. When you subtract out the age restricted, that number drops to about 3,200. Plainsboro's already approved 498. So we're looking at 4,176 kids, of which, residential units, of which 3,600 plus have the potential of yielding school-age children. And again, I believe, conservatively estimated 1,784. And why do I say that? Because we've used historical averages for factors, 0.53, 0.51, the apartments over time, townhomes over time. And what I tell you is when residential units first open up, it's uncommon, it's not common to have you hit the historical number. For instance, right on Old Trenton Road, the Thompson property, directly next door to the brand new mosque, it's going to be 185 new townhomes, between $500,000 and $600,000 for townhomes. The estimate coming out of there is, I think, 0.51 or 0.53. I have a hard time believing that families are going to move into the community for $500,000 and bring half a child per unit, right? But that sending path goes to Dutch Neck. So we are currently projecting on the historical average, because that's what the community has told us is acceptable. Not acceptable to estimate higher, right? We got that feedback in the spring. We readjusted all the numbers down. This 1,784 is a lower projection than what we were projecting in the spring. But we went up 868 units. We're able to bring forward a $114,875,000 referendum, bringing forward classroom growth, HVAC, and programmatic need, as well as security, HVAC, and others that I'll speak to for a zero on the tax impact on the debt portion. I have never once said that taxes might not go up, but what I have said is that on the debt portion of the budget, the $7.7 million that we're spending out of general fund today will be the $7.7 million we spend in the future. We will accomplish the rest through capital reserves, state aid, and declining debt. And we can deliver a zero on the debt portion of the budget. The Board of Education will always have the responsibility to make determinations based on the rest of the instructional program, right? Salaries increase, special ed costs increase, energy, healthcare, all those things increase. We have increases about $3.5 million to $3.5 million per year. If the board wanted to bring in a zero, you just cut program or cut opportunities for students. But you can do it. That's your choice and your will as a board. I'm not going to bring that forward as a recommendation as a superintendent, but the board can have that conversation in the budget process. What I'm talking about today is on the debt portion. The 114,875 can be accomplished with a zero on the debt portion of the budget. With respect to the goal is to make sure that we build the facilities to address the need of today, the growth of tomorrow, while being respectful and mindful to the tax impact on our community. Because it's true that if we do nothing and this gets voted down, yes, it's possible in 2022 that you get a little bit of money back in the form of tax relief in a one-time. But when the referendum eventually comes forward, because you're going to need it, you're going to need it. You don't bring forward this many residential units and not have an increase in your facilities. At that point, you're going to get hit with a tax increase. What we can do is do a zero and stay flat on the debt portion right now and be ahead of the growth and meet the growth that's coming today. Because in our schools today, in 2 years, 3 years, you're going to have more kids at CMS than we can house and we can feed. And those are kids that exist in the system today. They're in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade right now, surging through community. And they're from West Windsor and Plainsboro because the way of our community splits. This is not about West Windsor. This is not about Plainsboro. This is not about pulling apart the district. This is about the district of West Windsor-Plainsboro making sure we meet the needs of our students that are here today and the students in the facilities of tomorrow by being mindful to the tax impact. So I'll talk to you briefly about process plan and projects. Right, so we've looked at a multi-year process of existing facilities, capacity studies, anticipated growth, residential growth, demographic study. My first presentation to the Board of Ed was in the 2014-15 school year. We've been talking about this for 4 years. We've been building the costs. We've been doing the studies. We've been building the demographic study, the capacity studies, reviewing the facilities, listing the projects. I've been out there looking at Howard Hughes, looking at Sarnoff, looking at Amazon, looking at all this. None of those are incorporated in any of this. There's 1,000 acres in West Windsor alone that are still looking to be developed, above and beyond all of this. Facility capacity study, demographic study, district facilities review, expansion and condition, because some of this is about doing projects that we can't do otherwise. The HVAC systems are budget-breaking systems, 16 million, just under 16 million for High School North. However, if we do it through a referendum, it qualifies at 40% state aid, and we could get about $6 million back from the township. In fact, what we know is $25.77 million has qualified for state aid. So we've qualified $64 million worth of projects, $25.77 million. So we're getting $25.77 million from the state if this project passes. If this goes down, we start over from scratch, and we may or we may not get that money. We have done some things outside through capital reserve. Village here, 6 classrooms, actually plus basic skills rooms, so it's 8 classrooms, OT, PT, speech, special education offices. Also at Hawk, 16 classrooms being built. That also helps Village because the 4 pre-K classrooms move over to Hawk. Town Center is breaking ground officially next week. We've had some sidewalk and parking lot work done this week. The fencing will be going up tomorrow, and then we should see groundbreaking with site excavation starting next week. That's 10 classrooms. Residential growth. It's a chart I showed that's in the attachments in the About Us referendum section. But just take a look at that, what it represents. It's 4,176 units. Breaks out 3,678, 498. Those are the total units. Then you take the age restricted out, and you get the 3,134 and the 498. And then from that, you apply the factors of apartments, townhomes, apartments, single-family homes, and you get the 1657 in West Windsor and the 127 in Plainsboro. And that gets you your growth projected 1784. It's an enormous amount of children. It's high school south plus 200, right? It's 45 school buses on the roads. Think in terms of how many kids this is coming to this community, and try to attempt that without any growth classrooms. Now, the charts, this will be on the website tomorrow morning. The charts are to this link that show all the different residential, all the paths for Exhibit C. The capacity study on the district website. The demographic study on the district website. The capacity study shows that 8 of our 10 schools are over capacity today. Right? You see in the right-hand column all the 100 pluses. What that means is not that we can't fit the kids, it's just we're fitting the kids above the class size recommended by the state of New Jersey in the FES model. So you have unhoused kids because you have kids above and beyond the formula. So in other words, you might have classes at 24, 25, 26 in 4th grade at Village, right? So it pushes your percentages up. There have been some community members that have said, but you're not building in the right places. You're not building at Dutch Neck, right? It's got 119, you're not building there. That's right, because the kids won't be there in 3 to 5 years. Based on the demographic studies, Dutch Neck's going to decrease almost 200 kids. Now here's what I'll tell you. I don't believe it. Why don't I believe it? I have had this debate with the demographer. Now I have to be proven wrong in the next 5 to 6 years, or proven right. I expect to be proven right. And here's why I don't believe it. The demographic study projects kindergarten on live birth data from vital statistics records in the state of New Jersey that's geocoded and mapped to residential street address. Pretty cool, right? So they can take vital statistics, overlay it on a map, and tell you where kids were born and predict it out 5 years. Cool, if you're born in New Jersey. Right? So how many of our families move in after the children are born? So my prediction is that our K numbers are wrong 5 years out as our community has continued to shift in our demographics. No problem, beautiful thing, beautiful community. That's just our reality. So if those numbers are wrong, our whole projections going forward could be wrong. And so we could end up with concerns at a facility like a Dutch Neck in 5 years, where the Thompson property is online and sending to 200 more kids at Dutch Neck than we're currently projecting. And you could need to do something in a couple of years to take evasive action, so to speak, for my Star Wars fans in the audience. Right, so we have to watch this, and we're gonna have to constantly track and monitor. So our plan right now is to look at short and near-term growth. And I've talked about it being 5 to 7, 5 to 10 years, because it's going to have to be monitored through the full build-out. And we're going to have to manage our large facility projects, our current capacity issues, our enrollment growth due to new housing, in addition to the population that's growing through the community. And so our proposed referendum focuses on 4 areas: life safety, air quality, programmatic needs, and short and near-term growth. So with life safety, we've talked about fire alarm replacement for 8 buildings. Why not 10? Because Grover and North have had work done, and the addition here at 2015. All the other components of the other schools need to be done. Security vestibules at 9 of the buildings. Why not 10? Because Hawk is included in the work happening at Hawk. Emergency generators at 5 of our 10 facilities: Village, Millstone, Grover, Community, South. North is already has a generator. It's got the district internet networking hub at North, so it's protected with a natural gas generator for that room alone, as well as a generator on the full facility. And we will have to look to do the K-3s, pre-K2 school through other means, maybe through capital outlay dollars, or maybe through a future capital reserve project. Air quality. Again, these are monster systems that need to be replaced. This is, this is not just a home being replaced for 10, 15,000. This is a facility being replaced with boiler, chillers, controls, roof work, ventilation, duct work, steel work, sometimes asbestos abatement, depending on the size and age of the building. Controls, all those kind of things take time, money, and years. And the reason it takes years to implement is because you have a code requirement in the state to constantly run the air from October basically through May, June. So you can only do this work from the end of June through early September. And then you have to have the system back up and running. And so you have to do it in pieces, because because you constantly have to have the system ready to work again in piecemeal. So it will take, each project will take 3 years, but the schematic designs and all the engineering work to get this done, 6 to 9 months of work on the front end to design systems. So this is 3 to 4 years for each project. Different based on size. Wyckoff won't take as long as Millstone, and Millstone will take less time than North. But you get the idea. These take multiple years. Programmatic needs, obviously the growth. Performing arts, music. There are music rooms that need to be added at community, dance, at the 2 high schools. Now I want to spend just a moment on dance because there's been some misinformation that was put out there. And, you know, I got to ask people to stop reading op-eds or reading letters to the editor as gospel because it's misinformation. In fact, the 2 dance studios, the 2 culinary arts room, and the pre-K room or the preschool room at South cost less than what was identified in the paper by a resident for all 5 of those projects. In fact, it's 3% of the budget. So if you want to take out the referendum and all the growth and the HVAC and all the projects and the $25.7 million for 3% of the referendum, to me it's just, you know, we got to get past. There are kids that take these programs and want these programs. And if we're going to believe in the whole child and we're going to believe in educating students on a continuum and making sure that we have a comprehensive finding performing arts curriculum as identified by the Finding Performing Arts Program Review, as identified by the state of New Jersey as part of a comprehensive dance music program and arts program, if we're going to make sure our theaters are up to par, if anyone has had the displeasure of sitting in the Playhouse at High School South, and I've actually watched now 2 students break chairs just sitting down because of the age of that facility, you know, we need to put money into our facilities. We need to take care of our home. This is what we do as homeowners. I have $240 million. We have $240 million of depreciable assets as a district. We need to make sure we're investing in those assets, not only growing facilities, but taking care of those facilities. And we spend $3 to $6 million a year each summer. So we're on about a 40-year replacement cycle as a district. But what I tell you is, for some projects, it's unattainable to do those kind of projects in the summer. High School North alone would take us 3 years worth of capital project summer money and do nothing else for the district. Oh, and you wouldn't get the 40% state aid. Tech and robotics, our technology engineering program has grown over the last 3 years. Our high school students are loving that program. We have 3 teachers now between the 2 schools teaching this program during the day. But after school, those programs are alive and well as well with our world champion caliber Midnight Inventors program at High School North and South, and our growing and world champion quality FTC program that's both upper middle school as well as high school. We're out of build space. So what this also does is it adds a build space at South so that the FTC team and the FRC team have space, but also the instructional program has space. Culinary Arts, again, these are old, outdated kitchens that are heavily used by hundreds of kids per year. And while some people might be passing a value judgment on the value of culinary arts, I'm going to tell you that these are well-enrolled, well-subscribed programs that meet graduation requirements for students, and many students like taking these because of the ability to have an instructional program that meets graduation requirements that's just a little less of a stressor than the 6 APs and honors classes plus gym class they take, plus this, right? So there is a need for a culinary arts program, and we have a responsibility to make sure that the facility that's provided is updated. Those stoves are 40 years old. 200 kids a year go through, or 100 kids plus a year go through each kitchen. 22,000 students have gone through South's kitchen, or to North's kitchen, right? It's time they get redone. Media centers and learning centers in our libraries get overhauls and upgrades across. We still have books. We will still have books, especially K-5. But you want to talk about line of sight and concerns about drugs and vaping at a high school? Tell me what the line of sight looks like in South's library or North's library. Those stacks are places to hide. Those stacks are places to deal. Those stacks are places where I can't see what's happening. You want to make sure you have student safety? You fix the stacks. You lower them down. You increase technology. You open the space up. You look at it as like an interactive college library. You bring in more technology, because I can tell you by the distributions, the kids aren't taking out the books anymore. all the libraries have compliance issues with either ADA or are outdated and need to be fixed. Need more power, need more electric, need more energy, need more lighting. The short and near term I've already described through this, and I am not going to now go through every project as I have in the district, in the other presentations. I will gladly do that Thursday night if you want to come back here. I believe there was 3 of us last week at one of the evening presentations. I appreciate you coming back out, Mr. Pepper. But what I will tell you is $114,875,000 is split up this way. This is within the PowerPoint that's listed online that you can go to, that's listed at 10.25, and it goes through each project with site maps. But, and forgive me because I know it's difficult to see this, but what this does, it creates a summarization of all the projects by project type, so you get a sense of the total number of rooms, total number of lab rooms, total rooms, places with fire alarms, security vestibules, you get the idea. Right, so this is also on the district website. There's a tremendous amount of information on the website. Please, please, vote yes, vote no, be informed either way you do it. Please be informed as a voter, and I appreciate it. I know the individuals in the room tonight are here because they're looking to be informed. Where can you find out more information? Again, this will be on the website tomorrow, but all that information is under About Us with the Referendum 2018 tab. There's some links to some of those same things that will be there. Again, those referendum videos, I'm going to plug it. It's my best work to date on video. It really does a nice job, and the principals do a nice job talking through the projects. The bond referendum and the money, which is probably why many of you are here tonight. Let's talk about the money. So it's, again, big picture, the $114,875. It's broken down into capital projects, rehabilitation projects, and additions and renovations. Now, one misnomer I've heard is, hey, big number, break it down. If you broke it down, you would have got more money. On the surface, that might make sense if the state of New Jersey didn't have a funding formula. So under the state of New Jersey facility efficiency standard, certain projects qualify for full funding, and other projects, parts of projects, qualify. So for new additions, it's very common 10 to 15% of that project will qualify. So the reason why you don't have 40% state aid across all the projects is many of the project components don't qualify for state aid because it's additions. Additions do not qualify. So you can't break it up and hope for more money. That's just not going to happen. So you can break it up and do it over time. You're going to have problems throughout, and you're going to always have an element. Those same very projects you break apart are not going to be eligible to state aid later on. The formula is not going to change. So the zero comes around 3 ways, and there's a fourth I'll explain. Retiring debt happens in 2022, 2026, and 2028. These come from bonds that were previously taken by prior boards of education, right? Prior communities voted by those bonds. And under the law, under the state of New Jersey, the minute money is voted on by the voters, you have a legal right to collect it above and beyond the allowances. So right now, we can say 2% in allowance plus collect $7.8 million, which is this year's debt service payment. We don't, because we collect the 7.8 inside the 2%. And there's the way you really can help drive your zero. The overall state aid of 22.5% is that $25.77 million for qualified projects. And then cap reserve monies on hand. And I have to do to pass fiscal prudence because this Board of Education holds us firmly accountable for the dollars that are spent, and we work very hard to generate unspent money each year that goes to 2 places if we have excess surplus. Excess surplus goes to either 1, tax relief for the subsequent year, or 2, capital reserve. And the board has chosen to take actions both ways over previous years. In other words, each year they've done both. They've split the excess up into both pots. So here is a chart that indicates in green existing debt. So in green, what you'll see is sort of a step down. You can almost see how it works off by steps. And if we do nothing, and the board, if the community takes no action, and in future years there's no subsequent actions, by 2028 the district will be debt-free. You won't have facilities, you'll be overcrowded, your HVAC won't be fixed, you'll have security and fire alarm issues, but you'll be debt-free. The yellow represents the new addition, the new bonded debt, if the referendum was to pass. These are not my numbers, they come from bond counsel, right? And the bond counsel provides feedback of what this would look like based on the idea of 3 bond issuance over 20 years. One thing I would just note is that with projections of interest rates rising, the value of money today is going to be different than the value of money in 2-3 years. So it's something that we need to be cognizant of, is that it would take, if a referendum was to not be successful, 2 years before we're back to the public for another vote. And I promise you the value of money in 2 years is going to look different with interest rates. I would predict. Who am I? But I would predict. So you see that step down in 2022, 2026, and 2028. See the line, that magical line that goes straight across the whole thing, is that represents that 7.7 million. That's what's out of general fund dollars today. So again, to my knowledge, and Dr. Russo, correct me if I'm wrong, we are the only district I'm aware of that pays the debt out of general fund. I'm unaware of any other district in the state of New Jersey that does that. There's a reason why we're AAA bond rated, right? There's a reason why we're 10 years of continued certification of excellence by New Jersey ASBO, our finance department, our finance committee of the Board of Education, our overall administrative structure, this Board of Education, and our leadership team does a remarkable job managing the fiscal responsibilities of this district. As we look at that 7.7 million line, what we want to do is keep that money going budgeted. You budget those dollars at 7.7, therefore no increase in the current money you're paying today for your debt tomorrow, and anything above that line gets paid through capital reserve dollars. So thereby drawing down the cap reserve, which has been criticized for being too high. So we're actually taking care of that by using that money to pay for the projects to maintain the zero. So you're able to accomplish this through 4 different ways. The referendum question itself is a little bit misleading and confusing, but I'll break it down pretty quick. Question, paragraph 1, simply talks about the total project. It talks about renovations, alterations, improvements to the totality of the buildings, and then it identifies 5 which have the additions, right? North, South, Grover Community, and Wyckoff. And then it talks about the total value in the last line of 114,875. Paragraph 2 seems to be where people have tripped up, because what paragraph 2 talks about is not, it's not supposed to add up to 114,875. Paragraph 2 simply talks about what the state's formula produces as what the state share is. And when running all these projects through the state formula, they've qualified 64,425,210 as eligible projects based on unhoused students and $143 per square foot. This paragraph is really not about the voters as much as it's about what the state pays. So what that first line talks about is if you apply 40% to 64 million, you're going to get the 2577. And then it goes on and it identifies 2 parts of community and south that's bigger than the formula. So it says it's not eligible for it because it's bigger than the square foot asked for. It's 9 million and change. And if you add all this up in any way you want to add it up, you'll never get 114,875. So to the uninformed or to anyone who wants to mislead the community, they might say that there's pet projects, unassigned monies, that the district's trying to snowball the community. They might go forward and even create a fictitious website to mislead the community. Not that anyone's done that. But what it doesn't define then is 40 million in what's called excess cost. And forgive me, I hate that term because it makes it sound bad, but it means excessive. It means above and beyond the formula. It means the state won't pay for it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean it's not necessary. It just means the state's not going to contribute 40% to it. Right, so you have the 64, the 9, and the 40, or 41. And so another way to look at that is that the eligible costs is the portion that the state contributes 40% on. The ineligible cost is bigger than the formula. And the excess cost is the part of the new construction that exceeds the state allowance of $143 per square foot. Now, please know nothing can be built for $143 a square foot. So there's naturally going to be excess because you have to make up the difference between the $450 or $500 a square foot and the $143. And that's where that 40 million and change, 41 million comes from. It's the same total project, same square footage, It's just it gets broken down into different cost functions. And I'll give an example that's in the FAQ, but it deals with health insurance, and it deals with, why am I drawing a blank? Reasonable and customary. So thank you, reasonable and customary. So in my scenario, $100 doctor's appointment, right? You go to the doctor's office, they want to charge you $100. But the insurance company says reasonable and customary is $80. Doctor's charging you $100, $80, of which your insurance is going to pay 80%. So you're on the hook. They're going to pay $64. You're paying the 20%, or $16 of the 80, but you're also paying the difference between 80 and 100. You're paying the 20 plus the 16, and the insurance is paying the 64. All one doctor's appointment. All 1 square foot. All the square footage, all the same projects. It's just broken up in different pots by different formulas and different methods. So overall, state aid contribution or calculation, the total project's $114,875. Eligible state aid is 64. You multiply that by 0.4, and you get to 25,777. So the district share is 89. So then one might ask, well, then why bond the whole amount? Because the state of New Jersey doesn't give us a check for 2577 up front. They give you a proportional 1/20th in terms of debt service aid for 20 years. So you have to bond it all up front to do the projects, and you get the money back proportionally as you pay off the debt over 20 years. There's one thing I want to just note in this question, that last line. The Board of Education is authorized to transfer funds within the projects. This does not mean that the Board of Education can do projects that are not approved above and beyond what's been submitted to the state of New Jersey. What this means is that every project that has been asked for has to be built. But you might find economies and efficiencies within a project. Let's say site work for Grover comes in $500,000 more. You still have to build Grover. You have to find the money from within the referendum. So you might find some efficiencies in another part of a project, maybe a community, the $38 million project. You do a couple things a little different. You still build everything, but you change some of the parts just slightly to decrease cost. Maybe you change the lighting, different type of light bulb. You don't go with, the halogen. You go with a different, right? You change little aspects to drive costs down and find efficiencies and economies within the referendum, and then you can move money to make sure you cover the cost of the other project. It doesn't mean that you can do things that are not approved. What it means also, though, is if the whole referendum comes in $110 million, and there's $4 million in change left over, all that money goes back, not to capital reserve, it goes back to pay down the debt of the bond. The Board of Education must give that money back to pay down the debt of the bond. The ballots are out. They probably came home this weekend. I know we received ours this weekend. This is Mercer County's, the West Windsor's. There are 2 referendums on the ballot, and this is in both Middlesex and one is a state referendum. It's for $500 million for 3 things: $350,000 for VOTEC, $100 million for security undefined in water projects, and $50 million for community college. That's out there. And then there is the district's referendum, and it's on question. It's on the right-hand side. With the board candidates. Middlesex looks a little different. The questions are written in 3 different languages. Board candidates, I believe, are right above that. And the question, though, is exactly the same wording. Right? That's just one example. The referendum videos are out there. The website's out there. Lots of information out there for you to peruse and to become informed on. And just, up or down, remember to vote. It's real important as citizens that we exercise our rights to vote and cast that ballot. Too often ballots are won by less than 20%, or excuse me, elections have less than 20% of the electorate out there voting. If nothing else, if you're going to vote no, vote in informed no. If you're going to vote yes, vote in informed yes. I appreciate you all coming this evening to hear this. At this time, I'll take questions from the Board of Education. And then for members of the public that have burning questions, Thursday night's the time where you can come and ask me all the questions you want.
Any questions?
Hi, could you explain, you said there were erroneous numbers in the newspaper. What is the cost of the dance studio and the culinary arts rooms?
The Culinary Arts Room at North is $679,000. Cost of the the Culinary Arts Room and the preschool room, because the wall's attached, is just over $1 million, and the two dance studios are just over $1 million. So the total is about $3.7 million between those four projects, which accounts for 3.2% of the overall budget. Not that I looked that up today.
So the dance studio, you said it's just over $1 million for both of them, or for each
Per.
one? Per. Okay.
So, when we talk about total value of the entire overall referendum, if there are some out there trying to petition that the whole referendum goes down because they don't like that kids want to dance, then I guess they can try to take out 25 science classrooms, 22 growth rooms, HVAC so kids can breathe. They can try to do that, yes.
Okay, so the kitchen is $679,000 for each high school?
At High School North.
That's for
At
North?
High School South, the dollar's a little higher because it also incorporates the value of the preschool classroom, the Pirate preschool. So it's a little over $1 million, $1,020,000, something like that.
Okay, so there's a preschool right next to the
Yeah, it's a
kitchen.
preschool right off Commons 1. And there's the Pirate preschool, and there's kids that go into that program daily from our community. It's part of our, child development program, which is an instructional class for our high school seniors.
Okay. I have a question just about process. Moving forward, is the Board of Education, if the referendum passes,
Right.
are we going to vote on any of these projects, or have we already done that?
You've voted to bring forward the question to the public, and it's the public vote that brings forward the project.
The only vote, Ms. Hertz, there would be a vote to authorize
Yep.
the issuance of an RFP, vote to award
The contract.
contracts for the vendors or the contractors, I'm saying vendors and contractors interchangeably, that would be the board vote at that time. So each aspect of the project would then be bid. You would receive the bids, you would receive the architect's recommendations and analysis of the bids. The board would then vote to award the bids, and there would be a contract between the board and the various contractors for each aspect of the project.
So there will be many votes?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Okay.
many.
Let me go back even further.
Okay.
Remember,
Yeah.
just for the good of the audience, we have to go with the lowest responsible bidder.
Yes.
As a school district. That's the law. So there's a whole bidding process. There's a whole vetting process. As the bids come in, they must be qualified. They're reviewed by the architect. They're then reviewed by the district's attorney. If someone's missing an aspect of paperwork, they're rejected. There could be a bid challenge at that point. So there's a whole legal process, architectural process. I'm so glad that presentation's over because the power just went. So there's a whole aspect to that. So the whole how a bill becomes a law, of how the referendum actually becomes actualized, if and should the voters vote to support the referendum, then there is an entire process of schematic design, going to the DRC, Development Review Committee, for Plainsboro, the Planning Board for West Windsor. Those are requirements as part of code to go to those two bodies. Not because they actually can tell us anything, but there's a requirement before we submit to DCA. Then we have to submit to the Department of Community Affairs. They review the projects. They authorize the projects. Then we go out to bid. Then we go through the process. And then once the projects are awarded, like we are on our 6th or 7th job meeting for Town Center, and we're just breaking ground. So there's a ton of work that happens on the facilities with the contractors to make sure that you're managing the process, managing the projects, making sure it's security, safety, protocols, staging, fencing, safety measures, visitor protocols, drop-off, deliveries, all those things need to be taken into account to make sure that we're managing a project. And then you need to look at the scope and impact for each facility. Some of these facilities are outside the building, some of them are inside the building, some of them might happen when kids are present, some are happening in summers. So there's all different protocols you have to use by different project type. And so that's all, this in a lot of ways has been 4 years of work to bring us to today, and it's going to be 5 years of work to bring us to completion.
Yeah. Just for parents to be aware, there won't actually be construction going on where there are students present, right?
There may be construction going on in facilities where students are present, but not necessarily in the same classroom where the students are present at that
Right.
moment.
I mean, the
So-
kids won't be in the middle of a construction project.
Well, I want to be really careful about how I answer that, so I'm not misleading anyone. So let me give you a for instance. At Grover, the addition happens, so if you were to turn left onto Southfield, right? If you then turn right into that side parking lot where the buses drop off, the 6th and 7th grade wing end, and the facility will be added on the outside there. So the breakthrough will happen in the summertime, right? Not when kids are present. There might be some tie-ins of power and connectivity and things like that, but most of that work will happen summertimes, won't impact kids, and can be worked around. Community is the entire core. It's the gym, it's the cafeteria, it's the auditorium, it's the music space, it's the library. At the same time, you're building a new 14 classroom addition, a new library, and a new gym. So some things you might do is interior work as much as possible to be done inside during the summer months, and building the new addition, the steel, the cement, the slab on the outside, so that when it's wintertime, you can be inside the new theater, the new library, the new 14 classroom addition, the new gym. And so you're going to stage the work. That doesn't mean that there might not be a time where you're sealed off and someone's working in the auditorium while kids are present. You just have to be mindful of what work's being done at what point. You're not using necessarily power equipment at a certain point, but you might be laying down carpet or tile. And so it all depends on what's happening at what point. But it's impossible to
But for
say
the most
that
part,
there won't be some form of
They won't be getting
interaction
dust and all that,
with kids.
yeah.
Oh, no,
Okay.
all that is, there's all protocols that have to be put in place to mitigate all
Okay,
that.
okay, good.
Anyone else? I just want to just clarify, all these projects and specific items, the rooms, the floor plans, stuff like that's all been submitted to the state already.
Yeah, it goes through two processes. One's
So-
preliminary eligible cost and then final eligible cost for the state of New Jersey. They reviewed all the submitted projects, and they're the ones that validate the money that's being asked for is equivalent to the projects being delivered. So they've reviewed and approved all projects.
Right, so when the state's approved and what the board is committed to, or what the district will be committed to if the referendum passes, is not just the phrase, I'll say, an extension at Grover. It actually says what the extension is, what rooms will be built.
Correct.
So it is in detail, so,
It's defined in what was submitted to the
Yes.
state.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more presentation, and then you'll, Thursday. All right, that brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the presiding officer, and the public comment period will be limited to 60 minutes. Anyone would like to speak? Sure. Just give it to them and they'll pass it around. That's okay. There's no need on it.
Good afternoon. My name is Makarand Bidwai. I live in Ravens.
Please speak into the microphone.
My name is Makarand Bidwai. I live in Ravenscrest, Plainsboro. And what brings me here is I'm an advocate for my daughter Aditi, who is in Millstone River in the 4th grade. And being a public school, I didn't come here with any budget. And it appears that here is policy number 2551. And the plain text of it does not allow me to believe that I am supposed to spend any money for getting a violin rental. The first clause is self-explanatory. The Board of Education will purchase and maintain a supply of musical instruments for students enrolled in the instrumental music program. Then it kind of dilutes down, and if you go to the other page where there is a ensemble, elementary music ensemble information, it completely dilates where it makes parents responsible for payment of rental fees for a musical instrument class that is part of the school time. It's not extracurricular, it's not weekend. I already spoke to the guidance counselor and she told me that she programmed her because it's required. It's not like I can take dance or drama or theater or anything else or arts. It's absolutely required, and so my concern is right now that I personally think that it's a free public school system and this should not happen. I have instances, I have done a lot of research and I know that it's unequal treatment of some students, kind of the violin class becomes elitist. If you can afford to spend the $135 rental, you be a violinist. If not, you go in the general program, and this is segregation. And I respectfully request the board to review its own 2551 document and find that maybe it has been digressed, misinterpreted, as I wrote, lost in translation, and there is no connection. I don't see where it says. It just says, in general, students are encouraged to purchase. I mean, it's an encouragement. It doesn't say students are mandated to purchase or rent. And then it says district-owned instruments will be available to those students for whom the purchase of a musical instrument would impose a difficult financial burden. Right there, that sentence is way, like light years away from the first preamble. And I have put my notes here in orange. So my request to the district is that please, this program is, in my eyes, very unconstitutional. It has been abolished in at least California, I believe Michigan, Massachusetts, several states. I don't know where the New Jersey stands right now, but personally it's a very wonderful district. I don't think anyone here expects, and I have some, if I am bringing something in front of the board, I also have a solution for it. And that solution, I will be passing on some more handouts here in a second, is why don't we have a GoFundMe site for this music program? And parents can, I can pitch money there, and it's all anonymous.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Hi, Lori Marabella, Park Hill Terrace. 4 months ago, I spoke about the lack of any supplementary program for students who need additional writing instruction, opportunities, and time on task to improve their writing skills at the secondary level. A single IRLA period is the minimum, but it is also the maximum. Almost all instructional time is devoted to reading comprehension activities. I am months ahead of last year in my knowledge, as well as my disappointment, that writing is a rare event with a single 5-paragraph essay per marking period. The question is how 20 paragraphs gets our students where they need to go for high school, especially those who are starting from behind. Other parents have noticed this as well and questioned supervisors at a recent September SEPSA meeting about not being able to get additional writing instructions for their students protected by IDEA, and case managers who turn a blind eye to obvious deficits in written expression. There is disagreement over reality. A supervisor said to me after the meeting, quote, "Case managers are in a tough spot because they have nothing to offer." Wow. Take a second for that. A summary of this discussion was provided to 2 board members, Ms. Hertz and Ms. Case. Thank you for attending our meeting. After what became a lengthy meeting and was forwarded on to senior administration. Special Services Director Karen Slagle provided a response for the district that was woefully inadequate and borderline insulting. If we have told you that we have already met with Kathy Riley, who also had nothing to offer, please don't waste our time playing parent administrator hot potato. Please don't tell us to read the curriculum, which has already shown us how limited the writing opportunities will be. Confirmed by a supervisor, we now know our case managers have nothing to offer, yet we are directed back to them to, quote, "discuss options." Nothing to offer seems to be a unilateral, predetermined district decision without consideration for the unique needs of any child, made outside of an IEP meeting and not as a point of discussion among the IEP team. It is no wonder parents grow tired of the illusion that they are full and equal team members, as the law requires. Mrs. Slagle goes on to say, it is our firm belief that West Windsor-Plainsboro School District provides a robust and rigorous writing program that is differentiated to meet the needs of our students. This statement strains credulity, and I am hard-pressed to find parents who would agree. To be fair, this is not a situation of Mrs. Slagle's creation, although she has a hand in repairing it. The dysfunction in writing originates in gen ed, so this goes well beyond special services, and the problems have been known for some time. In viewing the video replay of the September board meeting, Martin Smith describes the need for the Collins writing program at the high school level. He says it's a program that has been studied for a couple of years and acknowledges, quote, the difficulties in our writing program. To summarize his comments, students were only required to write on demand in class due to teacher concerns about plagiarism or that writing would not be the student's own. Do we really need research from a commercial program to tell us that writing is a process of drafting, editing, and revising, or that writing should not only be done during the confines of a class period?
All right, thank you.
Can I have 3 minutes to continue?
You've had 3 minutes. We have 3.
Rather than speak again at the second public comment?
We'll come back at the second public comment.
Mark Pepper, 43 Providence Court. My wife Ann and I have resided in this same house for almost 27 years. For all that time, we have for the most part felt confident that the West Windsor-Plainsboro Board of Ed was doing the right thing for our school kids, so we have always supported our public schools by voting yes on all school budgets and referendums in that time period. Our children were no longer students here as of June 2011. We've continued to vote yes. I appreciate the presentation tonight. I've heard it before. I realize you've done a lot of work. Clearly, expansion is needed in our school district. My concerns are the fact that you need to stop pissing off voters. You're looking at a pissed off voter. Starting with the passage of the Class 3 officer program in the summer, and my concern is more in the manner in which it was done over the summer when very few people were around and were aware of what was going on. Many people I've talked to since that time are not aware of this program. Many of them, like myself, no longer have children in the school district. You know, I live in one of those fairly big houses over there. I had 3 kids in the school district. My house could easily hold 6 kids. So, you know, we don't have plans to move, but many of my neighbors are moving. They can't afford, you know, their concerns are they can't afford the taxes, you know, anyway. So the other thing that has really pissed me off is, you know, you stated that you don't like residents posting incorrect information on Facebook or in op-eds or whatever. A member of the school board has launched a smear campaign against one of the candidates for the school board. I find this offensive. And so if you want the citizens to play fair, the school board has to play fair. Okay, another, well, let me keep going. I think, you know, politicians tend to shoot themselves in the foot. This country is in such a huge mess because of the manner in which certain politicians have shot themselves in the foot. We are now being governed by a madman who wants guns everywhere, thanks to the NRA. So my beef with the Class 3 officers is it's the wrong solution. I guess I'm beating a dead horse here, but I still firmly believe it's the wrong solution for our school district. It's $5 million being spent over 5 years that would be better spent on some of the much needed programs you want to maintain here. And there's better gun violence prevention programs that could be instituted. Governor Murphy just had a press conference yesterday introducing bills that are working their way through the legislature, which includes some of these preventive ways of preventing gun violence. It's a proactive approach versus a reactive approach.
Thank you.
There was a massacre at a synagogue on Saturday. I guess, would you be proposing armed guards at synagogues and churches everywhere? It's clearly not the solution.
Thank you.
So, so I can't, I really have questions on how I can support this school board going forward. I firmly support Pat Ricard's for the school board, and I really resent what a member of the school board has done to smear his character. Thank you.
John Hinsdale, 38 Quaker Road in West Windsor. Mr. Board President, I came across this email circulated recently by Board Member Martin Whitfield, falsely accusing one of the candidates for next week's election of supporting a school-to-prison pipeline. It is highly ironic and hypocritical for Martin Whitfield, of all people, to be criticizing anyone about a school-to-prison pipeline, given that he voted 4 months ago to place armed police in our district. In fact, Board Member Whitfield was one of 3 board members, those being himself, Board Member Juliana, and yourself, Mr. Board President, who not only voted in the affirmative for that policy, but were too lazy to utter even one word of explanation to go along with your 3 votes. So if anyone else should come across this email from Board Member Whitfield, this very ironic and hypocritical email, they should consider its source and how the source has behaved, and then delete it.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a public comment? Okay.
Good evening, Bruce Amstrelli, President of the Teachers Union. I guess I couldn't let the night go without you hearing my voice. I just want to say that I came from a very successful event where the teachers are supporting this referendum, and we're calling our teacher colleagues in the district. We made 200 contacts tonight. We're going to make more contacts on Thursday night. I think the bottom line is continue the excellence and support the referendum. Thank you to the board for all the hard work you've done. I hope that, my personal opinion, it's not if it passes, but when it passes. We'll be in this all together, and I just want to comment on something maybe to Ms. Hertz and also to the community. The teachers have been through this before, and we will do our best to make sure that the education of your precious children continues no matter what's happening around them in terms of the construction. So vote for the future, support the referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to close the public comment. Now we come to committee reports, administration and facilities.
The Administration and Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, October 16th. We began our meeting discussing the academic calendar for the 2020-2021 school year. Since our last committee meeting, we got confirmation from the Cure Insurance Arena that graduation can be held on June 18th, 2021. Also, the calendar was reviewed by the Superintendent's Advisory Council for input, and minor adjustments were suggested. The proposed calendar will be shared with PTA representatives before coming back to the committee for final review. Dr. Adderhold gave us an update on the referendum presentations he's been doing throughout the district. He also discussed the Affordable Housing Settlement Agreement between West Windsor Township and Fair Share Housing. The agreement is expected to increase student population in WWP by approximately 3,500 students. The superintendent also informed the committee that the township planner has asked the school district to update some of the information on the master plan. Mr. Earl updated the committee on district security. Technology upgrades were scheduled to begin on October 22nd. Millennium and Matrix started installation at High School South and at Wyckoff. Both schools should be completed within 2 weeks. The testing of intercoms and speakers were scheduled for October 16th. Millennium and Matrix have informed the tech staff that the anticipated timeline to complete all schools would be about 12 weeks. And in the conclusion of the installation at each school, staff will be trained on how to use the new desk phones and be updated on the locations of cameras and strobes. There are a few policies on tonight's agenda that appear for first reading. Policy 8550, unpaid meal charges, outlines how the district will manage meals that they provide to students without payment. It's a mandatory policy that we do not currently have, so we're reviewing that so that we are compliant. Policy 8505, local wellness policy, nutrient standards for meals and other foods, is a mandatory policy, which we do have, but we need to update to include the Healthy, Hungry, Free Kids Act of 2010 and the addition of a school wellness policy coordinator. Policies 1121, 1122, and 4420 are 3 policies regarding benefits covering non-affiliated employees. Mr. Earl and Mr. Duncan told us that the policies are needed to be updated to include some additional job titles. Mr. Earl informed the committee that the facilities use policy will be reviewed and updated at a future committee meeting to include security officers as a selection for vendors to choose for service. Currently, security officers cannot be selected to support district or non-district events that are held in our school meetings, in our school buildings. The committee agreed that security should be added as a selection on the facilities use form. So should outside vendors choose to have security officers at their events, those vendors will be responsible for the costs associated with that. The committee got some updates on some current issues involving special education. A draft of a new form called the Documentation of the Use of Restraint/Seclusion was presented to the committee. The document will be used by all staff members who are involved in physical restraint procedures throughout the district. We discussed that if restraint procedures are outlined in an individual student's IEP, staff will follow the procedures stated in the IEP. Mr. Earl reviewed the pricing information for evacu-chairs in all the buildings. Evacu-chairs assist in building evacuation for mobility impaired people. Currently, we have 4 of these chairs in the district, but the recommendation is to have a chair in each school in the event of an emergency. We reviewed 2 job descriptions that will be presented at a November board meeting. The first was a title change, moving our guidance counselors to school counselor, which is consistent with the State Board of Certification. The second is an update of the instructional assistant job description, and with that update, we'll be able to include a wider range of duties and allow IAs to perform a wider variety of tasks in our schools. Finally, we learned that districts will be required to submit a school safety and security plan review statement of assurance by November 30th, and we intend to review that at our next ANF meeting, which will take place on Tuesday, November 13th.
Thank you. Any questions? Curriculum?
The Curriculum Committee also met on Tuesday, October 16th. We reviewed the data from this past summer's Option 2 course taking data and examined this in relation to the 2014, 15, and 16, and 17 results. The pass rate for 2018 was 53%. The majority of Option 2 courses continues to be in math, social studies, and computer science classes. We considered the possible addition of a new science course for the 2018-19 school year in the high school program of studies. The committee recommends waiting to understand the impact of having added AP Environmental Science before adding an additional science course. We discussed the Reading Recovery Program as well as curriculum development process for math. The committee recommends approval of the revised curricula for 2 high school courses, Creative Design and International Business and Culture. As part of the ongoing Media Center collection management, the committee recommends approval of the disposal of obsolete items in accordance with Regulations 7300.1, 397 books from the Town Center Elementary School Media Center and 889 books from the Maurice Hawk Media Center. All items meet one or more of the criteria as they are worn and or damaged as to preclude effective use and economic repair or restoration. The committee recommends the submission of 3 2019 Star Talk grant applications for the Hindi-Urdu Summer Immersion Camp for grades 3 to 5 in the amount of approximately $78,951, and the Hindi-Urdu Summer Immersion Camp for grades 6 to 12 in the amount of $89,967, and the Pre-Kindergarten Mandarin Jumpstart Program in the amount of $79,289. West Windsor-Plainsboro will serve as the lead agency for each of these grants. The committee recommends approval for a professional development consultant, Jennifer Lemp, to provide a one-day on-site training for third grade teachers of mathematics entitled Math Workshop Model in February 2019 at a cost of $3,000. The committee recommends approval of EdGEM's mathematical education resources for grades 4 to 7 for the 2018-19 school year at a cost of $1,500, and the Internet Safety Management System called the Gaggle Safety Management System for the 2018-19 school year with a total cost of $46,644. The committee also recommends approval for several overnight field trips as follows. Community and Grover Middle Schools, the FTC and FRC robotics team to First Robotics World Championships in Detroit, Michigan in April of 2019. The cost of the trip is approximately $1,050 per student. At High School North, there's a series of trips, the Science Olympiad to MIT in January. The cost of that trip is approximately $400 per student. The FRC robotics team to Mount Olive High School in March, that's about $225 per student. The FRC robotics team to Lehigh University in April, the cost of that trip is $600 per student. The FTC and the FRC robotics team to First Robotics World Championships in Detroit in April, that's about $1,050 per student. And Science Olympiad to Cornell in May, and the cost is about $700 per student. At High School South, the FRC robotics team to Mount Olive in high school in March will be approximately $225 per student. The FRC robotics team to Lehigh in April, the cost is $600 per student, and the FTC and FRC robotics team to First Robotics World Championships in Detroit in April, and the cost is also $1,050 per student. We will next meet this coming Monday, November 5th.
Thank you. Any questions on curriculum? Louisa?
The Finance Committee met on October 16th. Staff updated the committee on the status of the audit. Scott Clowen from Wiss & Company will attend the November committee meeting to review the report and answer questions. We are awaiting some numbers from the state to complete the report, so we will not be ready for board approval in November and may not be ready in December. The committee reviewed the agenda items for the October 30th Board of Ed meeting and supports approval of the items. The committee reviewed the M1 and comprehensive maintenance plan that the district needs to submit to the state. That's a state requirement. The district is still waiting on the final reports from the state regarding the energy audit. The administration shared with the committee that the building committees have started working towards a Sustainable New Jersey certification and are still, at the time they were working to get a grant submittal for the first round of grants this year. Chris indicated that they have put that together and he can answer detailed questions if anybody wants to know more about that. The administration shared with the committee the food service director's review of food service operations for September, and we had some questions about some interesting cost patterns which have been answered. For transportation, if you go back in time, we awarded bus contracts with a company called Phoenix back in, I guess, the spring, and then Phoenix went out of business in August, and the district had to work really fast to find other people to cover the bus routes under quotes, and now we have had the time to go out for bid, and it appears that the bids, I believe they're on the board action item for tonight, so the bids came in higher than what, in general, higher than what Phoenix had originally bid, but are lower than what we're paying the other operators to provide on a quotation basis. So the district is also working with a parent regarding a private school bus route question. The district is working on a request for proposals for a construction manager of record and for a construction manager for possible referendum projects should the referendum pass. The committee also discussed the referendum, including presentations and timing of communications with the public. The administration updated the committee on the status of construction. The project at Hawk is behind schedule at this point due to the rain. The administration meets weekly with the architect and contractors to discuss planning. The labor union has not been on site lately to protest the use of non-union workers by one of the subcontractors. Administration also shared with the committee that the implementation of the communication and emergency notification system began. Equipment is being delivered and site surveys are taking place. Installation should start in a couple of weeks and is expected to take about 6 months. Teachers in particular have expressed enthusiasm about the equipment installation, in particular the classroom telephones.
If there's something I can add, I did do a quick analysis on the difference in the routes, and right now, first blush tonight at 5 o'clock, the routes are going to cost about $160,000 more than the contracted routes through Phoenix. And there was one other piece in there I was going to touch on. But anyway, the bus routes are 170 more, but we were at 270, 160,000 more. We were at 270 on the 90-day quotes. So it came in less than the quotes, but more than the current previous Phoenix routes.
So it's bad, but it could have been worse.
Yes.
All right, any other questions on finance? Okay, before I ask for a motion on the agenda items, the superintendent would like to bring up something on administration.
In the administration meetings, there was a reference to the school safety and security plan being reviewed at the next A&F committee meeting. For the good of the board, just please know that on page 4, item number 4, is an agenda item resolution to approve the authorization of the submission of the safety and security plan. Now, I just went back and just re-looked at the SOA. It's under NJAC 6A 16-5.1. What the board's authorizing is that we meet the minimum requirements for our safety and security plan and nothing more. So the submission of this and the approval of this tonight simply means that the board understands that we meet the minimum, and we meet much more than the minimum with our plans. If the board is more comfortable than pulling this tonight, reviewing it at A&F and bringing it forward at the November 20th meeting, I'm just trying to remember if the committee meets prior to that meeting. It does, so we do have time still to do this in November if you should choose to shelve it tonight. But it would be the exact same resolution at a future meeting. It is required by code by November 30th for CUSAC.
And I would just say it's statement of insurance.
What did I say?
No, you said it correct. You said as written. No, you may have said statement, but it's written statement. It's just a typo.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
So we'll take item 4 off and save it for the November 30th? Or the, yeah,
I would like that.
okay.
Fair enough.
So,
Just want to make sure that we're removing 4 from that item.
yeah. So I need a motion on items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 of administration. Can I have a motion on that? Martin and Isaac. Any questions or comments on the administration items?
I have a question on number 3. I haven't seen the comprehensive maintenance plan. Is that available to board members?
Yeah, the comprehensive maintenance plan, it's a compliance document. It basically lists all the subsystems, well, not all the subsystems, but the majority of the major subsystems in the building. It takes the prior year audited number. It takes the current year's budget, and then it inflates the prior year's audited number by 2%. I have a copy that I can give to you right here. Yes, that's the comprehensive maintenance plan.
Is it about maintenance of buildings, or what, or is it about the budget? I don't understand. What is the phrase comprehensive
Sure.
maintenance?
The comprehensive maintenance plan concept came out of the School Facilities Efficiency Act of 2000, which at that time you had to do a long-range facility plan, and every 5 years it would be updated and submitted. And what it did is it took all the major systems of the district, facility systems, and it broke it out. So this comprehensive maintenance plan was nothing more than an annual taking those same systems and just saying, what did you budget, what was audited, what did you budget currently, and what, at 2% basically, because that's kind of the given, what are you going to increase it by? So it literally lists, like HVAC, plumbing, envelope issues, I mentioned HVAC, I think, roofing, and all that, and it just lists all that, and then it gives you a total number. Part of that's the M1, which actually tracks 10 years of that, and that's where we get the maintenance reserve maximum amount is from that M1 document. I have that too. And that's an actual, that's a spreadsheet that takes audited numbers, and then it takes the square foot per building, and it just basically compiles all that in one area. And I know there's been questions before, like how do you get your maximums in your LRFP and your maintenance reserve, this and that. The M1 document gives you the, it ends up giving you the maximum maintenance reserve amount and where you are now. And it shows what your percent, I think it's 0.2% that you have to spend on maintenance, which is a number in the low hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think it's like 0.2%. Which is like the required amount that you have to spend in maintenance, and no district is that low or anywhere close to being that low. So I have all that. If you want to see it, I can give it to you, and anyone else that wants to see it.
Any other questions? We take a vote?
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chen. Yes. Ms. Hertz? Yes. Ms. Ho? Yes. Ms. Juliana? Yes. Ms. Krug? Yes. Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor? Mr. Zhang?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. I went back to my old thing. And then next is Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
Okay.
Curriculum, could I have a motion on items 1 to 10? Dana and Carol. Any comments or questions on the curriculum items? Hearing none?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Hertz.
I'm voting no on number 2 and yes on everything else.
Okay. Next is Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Zhang.
Yes.
Mr. Chen. Ms. Case.
Yes.
Mr. Flares.
Yes. Finance, can I have a motion on items 1 to 11 plus the blue finance addendum? Taylor and Rachel. Any?
1 to 12?
Is it 12?
Yes.
1 to 12.
I meant that. I knew that. All right, I won't call 12 separate then. I'll just leave it 12. 1 to 12.
Okay.
And the blue addendum sheet. Yeah, Taylor and Rachel. Any questions on the finance items?
Okay. We'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana. Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Zhang.
Yes.
Mr. Cheng. Ms. Hertz.
Yes.
Ms. Case.
Yes.
And Mr. Flares.
Yes. Personnel, I need a motion on items 1, 2, 3, plus we have a rainbow of addenda here, the green, pink, and yellow addendum.
And I have one small change.
Was that? Is it a correction? All right.
And I have small change on the personnel agenda, the white, the original, page 3, instructional assistant Stacy Murray. In the discussion, it says replacing Judy Bessler. Just cross that off. It's not replacing Judy Bessler.
Okay. So I need a motion on that, Louisa and Isaac. Any questions or comments on the personnel?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Juliana? Yes. Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Mr. Zhang?
Yes.
Mr. Chen?
Yes.
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Ho?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
And Mr. Flores?
Yes. I want to acknowledge 3 retirements. We have Deanna Bancroft, the communications arts teacher at the middle schools, is resigning after 26 years for retirement. Karen Morgan, the secretary at High School South, is retiring after 17 and a half years. And Vilma Udeshi, the instructional assistant at North, is retiring after 25 and a half years. I want to congratulate them and thank them for their time with the district. They'll be missed. Next is approval of the minutes. Any comments? Oh, I need a motion first. Michelle and Martin, any comments on the minutes? Those in favor of approving say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to abstain. Any liaison reports? Any new business? Sure.
I've been getting a lot of complaints from parents about homework, and I'd like to know what the administration has been telling teachers about homework.
What were the
this year.
complaints?
That there's no homework.
There's not enough.
Correct.
So the Board of Education passed a new homework policy that we spent 2 years developing, and it's certainly not a policy that says that there's no homework. At the early elementary grades, the amount of homework that's been recommended is pretty limited. That was developed by the teachers. Fundamentally, at the earliest grades, focused around the development of reading and literacy, and certainly the encouragement and the recommendation that one should be reading to with one's child, and that the child should be reading at home at all times, starts from the beginning, and frankly should be starting even before children get to school. But we don't really see that so much as homework as just developing the joy of reading, and then some math homework also. And then the amount of homework increases over time as you move up through the elementary grades. At each, if you look at specifically at the policy that the board passed last year, we'll see the specific time recommendations within those. And then by the time we get to the middle school, really a lot of that kind of, greatly changes in terms of the amount of homework. If you actually add it up, you're looking at an hour or more of homework every night, and then by the high school ages, certainly there really are no limits within the new policy that was adopted by the board. So the policy and the regulations on homework, which were developed through committee with the teachers, vetted through the teachers for a couple of years, recommends sort of an increasing amount of time of homework we're starting from early elementary up through the high school.
Here's what parents have been telling me. In 5th grade, there's no homework.
Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. I've had a lot of parents talking to me about this. Several parents mentioned in 5th grade there's no homework. One of them asked the teacher, please give my child homework. She said, there's no homework in 5th grade. Another parent said that in IRLA, it would be okay if her child didn't have homework if they came home and were just exhausted because it was such an amazing, interactive, dynamic situation that, that was great. But now what their child is doing is sitting reading a book in class. And she doesn't think that's at all appropriate to be sitting reading a book in IRLA class. The math, this is in 4th grade. The math in school is really boring. They spend weeks and weeks on decimal place. My daughter has lost interest in math because it is so boring. I've heard, a mother told me she has heard teachers say, these students are so smart, I don't need to teach them. They will do well in the test. That's a really alarming statement. There's no joy in the math, no fun. School math should be fun, but the kids are getting turned off because it's so boring. Let's see. In reading, this is in 5th grade, the teacher reads and comments on the first entry of their reading and writing journal, and from then on, the kids have to talk to each other about it. They get no more feedback from the teacher after the first assignment. Not enough science is taught in the elementary schools. The kids are desperate for more science. They love science, and they hardly get any in school. One mother said to me, I have such low expectations, I've given up. I don't really expect anything from the school. My daughter her fun part of the day is in her extracurriculars. A high school teacher was asked in a physics class, how do I do something in physics? And the teacher said, Google it. And a teacher has told the parent that there's a district-wide push to reduce drastically the amount of homework. So this is what I'm hearing from parents.
Well, thank you for sharing that information. It certainly doesn't match what I see when I walk into classrooms, nor the work that we do with our teachers day in and day out. And should any individual have specific concerns, I highly recommend that they speak with the teacher, and should they not find satisfaction there, then they should speak with the supervisor of that specific program, and should they not find satisfaction at that point, then they should bring that forward. But certainly, some of the comments that you're making do not match at all what I'm seeing in terms of the instruction and what's happening within the classroom, and the tremendous work that's happening in the way our students are fully engaged within their learning day in and day out.
So you have now made a district-wide push to reduce homework? And
No, we have not.
I've also heard that, is this true that high school teachers, part of their yearly review and evaluation is based on how much homework they assign?
That's totally not true, completely false.
Okay.
Will you share that with those teachers? If those parents, as Mr. Smith said, if they have an issue, they should speak to the teacher, and then they could speak it up and move up the line. Would you make that recommendation to them? Okay, and then
If I haven't found satisfaction there, I would ask that you please recommend that they speak with the supervisor of those programs. So we have a K-5 supervisor of language arts, we have a K-5 supervisor of mathematics, we have a K-12 supervisor of social studies, we have a K-12 supervisor of science, so they could speak to each of those supervisors about the specific program and the work that we've been doing in each of them.
So you'll make that recommendation to those parents and let them know? Okay. Thank you.
Just so I could further, I believe there's a borough bylaw, and I can double check, that says that concerns brought forward to members of the board should be referred to the appropriate administrator or the appropriate agency. If a member of the board was to get a concern from a parent, by all means, send it to Martin, myself, James, or Chris, depending on topic. I ask that you CC me on any if it doesn't go to me directly. And we will then make sure that that information or that concern gets funneled to the appropriate administrator or the appropriate location at the, by board policy, the lowest level for resolution to be found.
I would only add, Dr. Auerhold, it's not just the board's applicable policy, it's actually a provision of the School Ethics Act, and it's one that we discuss in the annual provision. So just if board members are approached by members of the community, they are to refer the complaints and issues to the administration. So it is board policy, but it's also a tenet of the school ethics.
I thought that's what I was doing. Aren't I referring this to the administration?
Not just the board member, for the board member to encourage the parent to bring forward those concerns. I'm sorry.
The venue in which to bring it forward is not necessarily a public meeting, but that can be a discussion we have separate.
Guess there's no other new business? Second opportunity for public comment, or the second half of the first opportunity.
This would be the parent bringing forth concerns. As I was saying, the Collins Writing Program, and the reason it exists, it is unfortunate that the problem, and the reason it exists, was identified 6 or so years ago in the Language Arts Program Review, commissioned in July 2012. From the consultant's report, page 34, upon further inquiry, the teachers require students to complete all writing in class. No outside writing assignments are accepted in English classes. The paragraph continues in additional detail. Some other relevant findings from the review. Page 3. School year 2011-12, the middle school literacy instructional time was reduced to 52 minutes, placing greater demands on language arts teachers. A minimum of 80 minutes was recommended to engage students in reading and writing in greater depth. Page 4. Implement a response to instruction and intervention program in all schools, particularly at the secondary level. There is no response to intervention system in place in the secondary schools. Establishing Tier 2 and 3 interventions will increase the likelihood of student success. Page 33. Time arose as an issue throughout the data collection process. Teachers indicated that English language arts instruction lasted only 52 minutes and included both reading and writing. Both faculties indicated time as a constraining factor. One teacher mentioned there's not enough time to get through the curriculum and the units expected and still reach every student. We try. We are told it is a priority, but it is not. Providing a double block for English language arts in middle school will assist students when making the transition to high school and will provide teachers with additional instructional time. Page 37. Resources for struggling learners. One administrator recognized the gap in services. This principal noted there are supports for reading, but none for writing. This has always been an issue. Teachers also highlighted the disparity between support for reading and support for writing. This teacher said, one thing we often talk about is writing. We have pull-out for reading, but not for writing. Page 59, recommendations. When students reach middle school, instruction is cut to a mere 52 minutes. Teachers attempt to cover reading and writing during this time, but struggle to do so under tight time constraints. While several scheduling issues emerge in the middle schools, allotting at least 80 minutes for language arts English instruction will ease transitions students make from primary to secondary, as well as provide teachers with the opportunity to cover their material in greater depth. So quoting from the 6-year-old program review, and my experience so far as a middle school parent, certainly don't match the words robust and rigorous when it comes to district writing instruction. These are long-standing deficiencies, and I'd like to know why department supervisors, senior administration, and the Board of Education, especially members of the curriculum committee, have not been focused on them. Why are so many critical recommendations that would make a real difference for middle schoolers, the struggling and the doing okay alike, unaddressed 6 years later? Some of us are fighting for the basics here. We are waiting for your answers.
Thank you. I guess no one else wants to make a comment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Isaac and Carol. Those in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you for coming out tonight.